even professionals such as Alex constantly have half their face cut off.
Australia has. It's iron ore and podcasting. That's like the two strongest exports.
Okay, welcome everybody to episode 10 of the Old World Behemoths, where we have a special guest joining us tonight. Pash, all the way from the homeland of long eras gone by, of colonialism, the UK. Thank you for joining us, Pash.
Nice.
Oh, love it. Well, Pash, we've got a bit of a tradition going now with starting these things, which is we're going to ask Tom first of all. Tom, why are you a behemoth?
Well, I could go on a long-winded thing about what I do for work and what I do for study and how much time I, have to juggle and all that kind of stuff. But really, it's just the friends that we make along the way, isn't it? And I'm a social behemoth, and that'll probably be it. I'll just rest on the laurels of being 6'5" this week, I think, and just leave it at that. More importantly, Pash, why are you a behemoth?
I've actually watched a couple of your episodes, so I knew this was coming, right? Okay. But I couldn't think of any good reason or any good description. So I thought of what's the most suitable. Why would I describe myself as a behemoth? And it's, I think, much like a giant gelatinous cube. I just absorb all things Warhammer that is in front of me and make it part of me, and it just makes me grow. So I'm a giant gelatinous behemoth. That's me.
Love it.
Excellent. Well, we do have a deck to upload once I actually get this working.
This is a professional. I like it. You guys
this is proper
on the
professional.
ball.
That's what happens when Alistair's not in charge.
Not driving this thing. It's not loving this. Not loving this right now. Stand by, sir.
No, it's all right. I'm glad we've got the B team here today. It's very much appreciated. you get what you pay for.
That's right.
Speaking of pay, yeah, you guys can sign up to our Patreon.
Oh gosh, well, we'll get to that if we can actually get this working, which is.
And this is the type of quality that you can accept.
Here we go.
Can expect when
we got it.
But it goes.
We're in action.
Oh, nice. I like it. What a picture you chose as well. I'm very happy it wasn't one of the more flattering ones where I look normal and sane.
Well, we have to thank Chris for that one because he came and did the setup for this. And
yeah, it looks good. So
the topic today, most generally, except for hoping to ask you a couple of interview questions, Pash, because I know that you kind of got the persona in the UK about a tournament player. You're still on Team Scotland. Are you still captaining Team Scotland?
From a distance, perhaps. I'm not going to Germany itself. I have taken the role of coach this year. So I helped them. I took them to the home nations and we finished second there, which is respectable. And then I basically handed off the reins to our captain for this year, which is Dan. And I said, good luck. You go and go forth and multiply. So they're away. They will be away in Germany. I'll be watching from home and cheering them on. So I wish them luck.
That's good. And the pairings came out for that, I believe, this week.
Yeah, I think they just come out this weekend. And I haven't seen them all, but there's some really interesting. There's some strong teams there, so there's going to be a good event, no doubt.
Yeah. Did I see it correctly that there's actually an Australian playing on Team Scotland?
No, I don't think so. I think there's it's a fully Scottish team. I mean, Scottish. There's been a few people pulled in from different areas, but
that's super awkward for Alex because he's actually booked his flights and he's got the Team Scotland t-shirt and everything. So,
actually,
good try.
Honestly, if we did have a few roster changes, we had a few people that people just couldn't make it that 8th place. Yeah. So, had you talked to us maybe about 3 weeks ago, there would have been a good chance.
Could have made the cut. Could have made the cut. They would have gone, the 52nd top-ranked Australia player could come and join the Scottish team.
Definitely. But actually, the people that did end up going is actually a really good team as well. So I think they'll do us proud, our home Scots.
Well, we wish them well. And to follow on from Tom's comments about thanking the Patreons, we do have a few new ones this week, Tom, including the Orange Juicer himself and the boys over at Western Sydney Wargamers, which, Pash, if you've ever watched any New South Wales-based podcast, aka Old World Fanatics or 2+, you'll know that the Western Sydney Wargamers run the Old Hammer series, which is a 40-player tournament that happens every quarter, which has kind of become the new event on the calendar. A new event,
Nice.
the continuing event.
The event on the calendar, for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like Christmas every 3 months. It's fantastic.
We love it.
Wonderful.
It's what we all train for. Well, continued thanks to Death 1942, Ghost, Pandem Wargaming, Joshua, Sick, Silver Dave, Gomo, Bone Ed, Earl of Kent, and Ula Zed, and our 2 new Patreons. Now, let's get into it. So, we were joking about this, Pash, but I kind of feel like you're becoming this honorary Australian podcaster because you seem to pop up everywhere. So we thought, who we're going to have on for episode 10 has to be the Scottish man himself. And
I mean, I'm like a Pokemon master. I'm collecting all the Australian podcasts. I'm slowly making my way through them, but every time I go on one, another 4 appear, and it's a never ending, ending task.
Yeah, well, this is always a good sign, and clearly, you're one with the knowledge, because not only are you on the Dwellers Below, well, with Chris Cousins on a lot of the videos, who's now over with you in Scotland. The 2+ boys always talk about you, and Gomo and the team at Old World Fanatics have you on as well. So to all the Australian podcasters out there who are looking for their next guest, hit up Pash. He's an unpaid act, which he's happy to do at a distance.
And worth every penny of that. Yeah.
Worth every free penny, for sure.
Every free penny of that.
It was never in doubt.
100%. You get exactly what you pay for. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, mate, for coming on. Now, you're a winner. Not only a tournament player, but a winner, most notably last weekend at Toy Soldiers. I've watched your video. And, I mean, Pash, look, probably everyone's watched the video by now, but just remind us, how many games did you have with Britannia before you went to the event?
So none. Basically, I mean, nobody's more surprised than me about how well I did at that event. I decided for this one, I was like, I'm just going to take something new, something different, something I struggle with, because I don't really play against Britannia very often. So there's a whole lot of rules interactions I wasn't just needed brushing up on. And I was like, okay, I'll take Exiles. They're a thing. I think they can do well in this. Maybe I'll go positive. I'll be happy if I got 3 wins, and I got 3 wins. That was, goal achieved. I did play a couple of practice games on Warhol, so I guess that counts. But my first actual on the table game was my game 1 on the Saturday against one of the Team England heavy hitters.
Show them who's boss, eh?
Yeah, well, it was a draw, so it wasn't like a massive.
Okay.
But it was a draw because I basically threw away a win. But no, it was a tactical draw because game 2 was one that everybody wanted to avoid playing vampire players. So you didn't want to win round 1. It was a tactical. It was a tactical draw, sort of. But I also did actually genuinely threw away the game. It was wild, but it was it's weird. What happens when you go into a tournament being like, oh, let's see what happens, and then boom, you end up winning it. It was a Shark Tank as well. There was only 40 odd players. There was I think 38 turned up on the day, and out of that, 10 of them are in the UK Masters bracket at the moment. So you look around and it's like, oh man, like.
Killers
all
everywhere.
The ranked players everywhere, and it's getting harder and harder to I mean, look at that result. 3 wins, 2 draws. Like, you go back 12 months ago, that would have never won you an event. You would have needed to 5 wins, and people were getting the 5 wins or 4 wins in a draw maybe. But now I feel like the games are getting tighter and tighter.
Especially in the lead up to a team sort of event, that's relatively international. Everyone's looking for games and probably traveling around to get the reps in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the quality of players is improving. People are getting more and more games, and it's harder for me to get easy wins now. Like genuinely, the standard of people is really increasing. And then there's some old names coming back into the fore, like people who have played 7th, 8th edition, have done ETC before, or competed at a really high level, and have now decided, you know what, it's now Old World's at a stage where I'm happy to jump back into it. And they haven't really lost those skills. Once they get up to speed with the rules, they're really difficult opponents to
those square-based tactics. Yeah, I mean, wargaming tactics in general, right? That's why so much of it is cross-contaminable. Yeah,
it's definitely I think if you're that type of person where you like the challenge of figuring out the puzzle of what's sort of like good, what works, and the problem solving of say a game or a board game or whatever, that's transferable across multiple game systems, I think. It helps if you're obsessed with it, as we all are.
I think we have to be in our age group, because I often joke that Old World is like the geriatric league for gamers, because we've all been through the phases of competitive 40K in our younger years. Other systems, whether it be FFG based systems, X-Wing, Armada, and so forth. And now we've arrived back in Warhammer Fantasy. Everyone's 10 years older, and I mean everybody. People have a bit more money. So there's kind of, it's got its own elitism in Old World now, where it's like, if you're going to come into our system, you're most welcome, but we're a bunch of gaming dads with
that's exactly what it is.
Expectation of fully painted, no jank, etc.
I was actually thinking about this today, listening to one of your episodes, of course. What is like the typical average gamer? And I would say it's probably somebody in their mid to late 30s. He's got 1 or 2 kids. He's got like, a steady job, decent income, can afford to buy the nice toys and maybe go to a nice event or once in a while. Maybe you should start catering to like, so, you go back to our early gaming days and we would have been sort of in our 20s and skint as shit and basically willing to sleep on the floor of a gym hall just to go and play Warhammer. Now it's like, maybe we should hold a tournament in like a whiskey distillery or like a brewery or maybe
with
like
comfortable chairs,
soft lighting, low, like quiet music, table service. Like there's definitely a market for that, I think.
An upmarket Warhammer. Speak for yourself though, guys. I recently went to Warhammer World, and to do so, I slept on my mate's floor for a week. In sort of very far west London. So yeah, I mean, I'll do anything. I'll do anything to get my hit.
If that's in London, that's considered luxury. I mean, at least you didn't have to sleep on a park bench or a bin.
Yeah.
Tom, that was a long way to go just to do your sales pitch on ogres.
It was. Yeah, I was knocking on all the office doors, like, hey. But yeah,
if only.
So we've pulled up some stats here, right? And this is drawn from Old World Rankings. Critically, if you can filter by the date. So what we wanted to do is have a quick discussion about what we're seeing, because 1.5 came out. Arguably, I think everyone's calling it the new version of the game because it dramatically shifted the entire meta, the way people play, the way people talk about it, etc. I feel like dragons are no longer around or as scary as they once were. I feel like vampire counts, the hate against them has tripled, deservedly. And so we wanted to have a quick look at this. So this is the overall statistics for the global. And on the left-hand side, you can see the high-level breakdown of the armies without the subfactions broken out. On the right-hand side, with the subfactions broken out onto them. And we're going to have a look at some regional data as well. Up the top, of course, leading the charge in both the online commentary, perhaps online hate, is Grand Cathay. Now, Pash, in Australia, a bit like most Aussies, we have delayed shipments.
I was going to say, have you guys even seen Cathay yet? Is that
we
thing?
have. They
out in
they
what?
have
Like
landed.
GW or 3D
they have
printed?
landed, but per balloons, I think $300 approximately, could be a tiny bit less. So
285. Yep.
285. Yep. So if you're talking about a few $1,000s to run, the
holy
list,
crap! So Australian dollar is $2 to the pound, GBP. So essentially, you're paying what, $300 Aussie dollars for a balloon. That's 150 real quid. That's a fair chunk of cash. I know a guy who can get you them cheaper. That's all I'm saying. It only marks only a 10% markup. Is this Tom? Is this where you went to Warhammer World to like sneak in lots of Cathay stuff into your case and then just flog it to pay for your
just
trip?
distribute it. Exactly. As long as I wasn't caught by customs, it's the plan.
Man, those balloons are really hard to get up your arse, but I commend your ability to smuggle them across the border. Well done.
Again, I'll do anything for my hit, right? Anything. What do you think this mysterious cupboard behind me is for?
It's just full of Cathay.
Terrible.
But it is the closest thing to real
balloons.
ogres, Tom. So, I mean...
It is.
Yeah. Well, there's ogres in it, isn't there? I mean, ogres are technically live in Warhammer World. They're just overloading, busy loading those bloody cannons.
Absolutely. So the top 5, I don't think anyone's really shocked by Cathay, Vampire Counts, Tomb Kings, Bretonia, but what surprised me
what's going on with
Beastmen?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I have seen Beastmen at events. I mean, Toy Soldier had at least 2. I've not faced them since 1.5. I know the Herdstone is a thing. I know their casting is a thing. I don't know. I'm a little bit. I think Magic has taken a bit of shine off what it used to be. So I which is a shame because I really liked Magic heavy builds. And now I'm like, I see builds with no Magic, just Magic resistance across the board, and they seem to do okay. So I'm surprised they're up there. I guess
with all the Magic buffs though, right? All the Magic buffs, still exist. They're still basically casting like old 1.0 casters, and everyone else is significantly decreased. So, it could be something to look into. I'm not privy to what archetypes being run, but it's very interesting data.
I think we're looking at mostly. Well, hold on, we can have a look on the other side, can't we? Wild Herd, Wild Herd. That's doing really well, isn't it? So, I think it's mostly the spam of multiple Wild Tides. I think
still,
I struggle placing Beastmen as a really good army, because you look at it on paper, you're like, it's just a lot of cheap crap. Like, you throw enough at it and it'll hurt. And I have the same mentality when I play against them, and then suddenly I'm like, they hit like a truck and they've got some cool stuff. I don't know. I've still got 8th edition brain when Beastmen were just a bunch of goats running around, and you could just tear them off the board easily and stuff. It was rough being a Beastman player. I think this is as good as they've ever been, or at least in recent memory. So good on them.
I mean, looking at the data, right? Most things are close, right? It's really only until you come right down the list to Skaven. Shockingly, Dark Elves are low on this one, which is interesting, because in Australia, I think we've got all the killer Dark Elf players globally down here, or at least a large majority of them. But probably of more interest is the regional data when we pull this out. In Australia, we don't even have Cathay in the top 5.
Again, is that an availability issue?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even here, like Cathay. So again, at Toy Soldier, there were 38 players. 10 of them are Masters level. There was one Cathay player. Only one.
And that was Chris.
Cousins. Yeah, one of yours. Your fault, really. So like I'm surprised there hasn't been more. Now, speaking in our own community, the Scottish community specifically, there's actually a lot more closeted Cathay players, and they're like, we sort of had the conversation because the models are amazing. The book is really, it looks really good. Like from a visual perspective, Cathay, they've really smashed it. Really cool sort of design, but from a rules perspective, it's a bit of a loss. And mainly, I think that's the thing is people are like, I don't want to be seen as that guy playing the bent army. And they're sort of waiting until it gets changed because everybody's expecting a change, right? Like it's so clearly
above the
curve. Yeah, that something's got to be done about it.
I suppose the question, and this is probably really the title of the whole episode, was geographical differences, right? Because I feel like down here, when Cathays, even though we've got them and so forth, Old Hammer in New South Wales, the states, probably like the signature event now, but we've already capped the number of balloons possible.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
So is that what's happening in the UK?
Yeah. So ever since the release of 1.5, we've had a bit of a development in the UK tournament organizing scene, and in a positive way. So basically, we are now talking to each other a lot more. There's a Discord group for all the top UK tournament organizers, and it's basically anybody who has run an event. Was it 10 or 12 people or more in the last sort of like year plus? And it's not a massive group. There's about 50 of us. But it includes a lot of TOs. Everybody got an invite. Not everybody's joined, but everybody got an invite, including the GW organizing team. They're in there too. So like it's got some weight, and we talk to each other. We say, what are you guys doing about this? How are you thinking about comp? What are we doing about X, Y, and Z? And you don't always agree to do the one thing across the board, which is not a bad thing, but at least you can see what consensus is. And I think it really helps those TOs who aren't like plugged into the scene 100% of the time, who are like, I really like running a couple of events a year. What's the what are people running? What's the consensus? How can I run an event? And I think it really helps those TOs as well. And it's a really good starting point for discussion about comp, etc.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll talk about that a bit later on as well. Just looking at this further data down here, I mean, the USA and the UK, you guys have obviously the most amount of players between you. I think anecdotally half the world of Warhammer that plays at events is either of two countries.
So what you're saying is really we know how to play Warhammer properly. Like so the way we play it is right, and the way that all the like European continentals play it in funny ways is wrong, right?
We can go with that. It's a new form of colonialism.
It does smack a bit of that, to be honest. So apologies to any of your German and Swiss listeners, but no, I think, I mean, it's I don't know what it is. Is it a tradition thing? Is it just because it's an English speaking sort of game? I don't think so. I think the game is big in other countries, but I don't know if it's disproportionately bigger in the UK. Like, why is UK bigger than Germany in terms of how many Warhammer players we have? Germany is much bigger in terms of population and size and everything. Maybe they're busy playing other games. It's hard to say. Maybe there's a cultural aspect to this as well as a. I mean,
it's a UK game, right? Yeah, and probably I wonder if it's something to do with cost as well. We were talking about the balloon prices. I mean, it's significantly cheaper. Exactly. Yeah, slowly but surely.
I think GW even put out an announcement literally in the past few days that prices were going up again.
They did. That's right. Yeah,
4%.
That's good for your smuggled balloons, Tom. That you've
it is. It's fantastic. The profit,
great.
Profit margins are going to be so good.
So good. Stonks.
But I will be really interested to see what happens at WSWG. The Old Hammer in September. I wonder. I mean, it's probably not going to affect the overall statistics in a significant way, but I really do think that we'll probably see Cathay near the top. With not much else changing. I can't imagine that Bretonnian vampires or orcs, etc., are going to have, a completely sort of subverted gameplay style just due to the presence of Cathay. So, yeah.
It's interesting because if you play against Cathay and you have a look at the type of armies that do or have got game against them, you would probably say orcs and goblins and vampires being in there. Bretonians also, maybe up there. Beastmen.
I mean, Wildtide is not going away, right? So that's still pretty
Wildtide's
good.
not going away, but like, what's your plan B?
Mm.
You know, High Elves, nah. Sorry, they're not gonna. They're not gonna go up against that too much. So yeah, like you look at the top armies that are the top now, they still have play into Cathay. I think the problem that is emerging is there's a widening gap between the top armies, which there's probably about 4 or 5 of, and then everybody else. Like those armies compete fairly well against each other, even against Cathay. They've got game. It's just like if you play Cathay against any of the other armies, there's a massive difference, and I don't think we've had that so far in Old World. This huge chasm between the top armies and the bottom armies, or even the mid tiers. I think it's noticeable.
Yeah, 100%. And as an Ogres player, Tom, as a Demons player, myself, there are Band-Aid fixes. Well, actually, that's unfair. I apologize to Val. It's not a Band-Aid. It's actually a much more advanced treatment to that closing of the gap. It's a proper surgery to try and fix some of that. But I agree with you, Pash. I mean, I think for us, you're probably a few events ahead of us, right, in terms of the 1.5 experience and getting the grit in with these 40-player events. So, again, I'm keen for the event in September to see how it goes. I mean, I have talking about changes in 1.5 and the emergence of more magic resist and lower wizards. I've had to shelve the demons now because I was on a rampage with my exalted flamers rolling around as level 4 casters. Level 3s beginning a extra +1 to cast with the summoning and doing lots of damage. I've had a few games now with them, and the punch is not there. It's just like the reliability is gone. In fact, I've found the actual shooting attack of the flamers has done more damage than casting the summoning.
Yeah, and this is, I think, one of the more emerging factors of 1.5 is magic is not as good as it used to be. Was it too good? Maybe, but I feel like we've gone a bit far the other way now. Like it feels like something in between would be better. I don't know. I mean, I what I do like is you can take level 1, 2 casters and they're not massively, like, you see them now. They're a thing. You can have a no magic list and it's viable. Like, that's good. What I don't like is, unless you have massive tools, like your vampires or your mortuary cults or your beastmen with their casting bonuses, which are the magic heavy armies. Everybody else who isn't like super magic heavy now has a quite unreliable way to spend points in magic, and it's like, is that the best thing to do? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think the issue, if there was one change, it would be remove the extremely common from some of those MR2 items that people have across the board.
Fair.
I mean, or make them specific, like the Witch Hunter's Ward. I could totally see as if you're the basically the Knight factions and you don't have access to high level casters, then sure, get that's thematic knightly orders. Get these special MR2 factions. Brazen Collar that my fellow Chaos players, you included,
they don't leave home without it.
Kill me for this. You make it Khorne. Well, why is a Tzeentch unit able to take that? I don't understand that one. And I play Chaos itself, so that's I think where I think the little change could be made. But that's another dramatic shift beyond an errata, which I don't think we're going to see until version 2, proper version 2 of the game.
When do you think that's going to be? If you had to take a guess of when they're going to release version 2.
I'm going to say 2027.
Yeah? Q1 2027?
Let's go with that. Tom's praying for next year because he's hoping
please, no. I can't afford it. Well, maybe after I sell my cafe balloons, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I'll
might
be honest.
able to buy the company soon.
Well, yeah, I think the pace of change has been relentless. I think, like, we're not used to this. For those of us who've been around since 8th edition, getting more than one release in a quarter is like
Huge.
getting more
Phenomenal.
than one release a year sometimes is like significant. There's times where you're getting basically like one release every 2 months. It feels quite fast and relentless, which makes me feel like 2nd edition isn't too far off. If I had to put a guess on it, I think Q1 2027 would be sensible. Like I don't see it happening next year unless it's like end of next year. But I don't know. I mean, it moves so fast. Who knows what's going to happen in 3 months' time? Never mind 6. Never mind more.
Yeah, we might also have like a 1.6 in 6 months, etc.
Yeah.
Like a big format change. Surely Cathay is going to get a little bit of a nerf bat.
Oh yeah,
soon.
I would expect that to be the case. I think what's happened is basically this. Having spoken to some playtesters who have tested the balloons, they said that their original version was garbage. It was just not really usable. And they said, look, it's not really working the way you've written it. Why don't you do either A or B or C or D? And GW went, A, B, C, and D. Yeah, okay, we'll do all of those. No. One of those things, one of those 4. They're like, yeah, we got you. We'll do all of those 4. And that's essentially what's happened is they've sort of overshot. To try and make sure that they were a success, they've overshot. They made them a little bit powerful. So now I'm almost certain that they are aware of them being a problem. But we've got Christmas coming up, sales targets. Let's just
let's just leave it.
Let's
just leave it.
Just a
we need more data. We need more data.
We need more data. Exactly.
That's
so
right.
I think they'll bump it, and I think we'll see a change to them in February or March, or January, February, whenever that Q1 FAQ will come out. Question is how they're going to fix it, because let's be honest, their track record with fixing things is like, we'll increase them by 5 points. Yeah, that's fixed the problem. There you go. Change nothing else.
That's the point throughout. But the much feared, and talking about who's in this image right now, Paddy Brown's worst moment in his life was when Sisters of the Thorn got the Nerf bat and totally pummeled into the ground.
Yeah.
So I hope they don't do that.
I don't think, like, let's be honest,
Cathay is bringing it back a little bit.
Like Cathay's a poster child army for this edition. They're not going to go overboard with them. I mean, look at when they, smashed down Peg Knights. Oh, they increased them by 4 points or whatever it was. Like, it's not. When they have their favorites, they keep them. They sort of gently caress them slowly into submission. But I'm not expecting big massive changes. I don't think they'll be up. I'll be honest. There might not be enough. We'll have to see.
We'll have to pray.
We'll
now, onto the topic exactly we're talking about, which is shooting. And this is something I was thinking about. And topically, Paddy Brown released this video from the 2 Plus podcast literally hours before we started recording this, Pash. So of course you've watched it, right?
Of course. Yeah. I did actually start watching it. I did start watching it. So I've not had a chance.
Go check it out. It's his top 5 units, and we can't disagree. Probably 2 of those units were contributed to by the war of information by our fellow behemoth, Alistair, who has currently been making great threats to turn up to the tournament with 30 Outriders, all with Squintoffins in Null as a whole, and Road Wardens and other things. And I've faced that list, and let's just say it was an interesting experience. One that you probably don't want to repeat, but it's not invincible. But you can see there the faction performance when we expand out the sub-factions again. Null is actually in the top 5.
Yeah, Null are interesting because they are essentially gunpowder wood elves. That's what they do. Like they do the whole move in, shoot, avoid getting charged or anything else, and keep shooting you until you're dead. But with gunpowder, I mean, let's be honest, that's essentially what Wood Elves will be doing for generations. Except now they're backed up with Leadership 10, MR2, some magic items, and cannons. So, like, if we gave Wood Elves cannons, maybe they would do the same. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, notably, I think it's something like 125 shots from the Outrider list per turn, and so
it's painful.
It's painful. It's not. I'll give him credit though, Pash and Tom, because it does have one weakness, which is if any form of strength 4 AP anything touches it, they die.
Well, elves,
almost immediately.
Again, like it's the same with elves, isn't it? Like, I mean, I've played against this list a couple of times, and it has never been an easy game. There's not a lot of room for error, but there's still a psychology army. Like, okay, it's leadership 10 for the most part, but it's they don't tend to have BSBs. They don't tend to have a huge amount of rerolls. They can spike a few bad dice, and once you start getting into them, once you start contacting those units, if you have just tons of threats, they will start melting. So I think it's got its weaknesses, but yeah, it's certainly a factor that you have to keep in mind, and it's only one of many similar style lists out in the meta today.
I also wonder, sorry, Alex, I wonder if this is sort of a necessary evil of 1.5 that might not even be that evil. Like we've asked for sort of more dynamic, fluid gameplay. And this is sort of what it kind of looks like. You need the tools to be able to ping a couple of wounds off of a unit so they can capture objectives and all that kind of stuff. And I think I'd prefer that a lot more than, say, a dragon just being able to do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, and just win on points. So I think that this is still, is shooting back. Definitely. It seems so. The stats say so. But does that feel better than dragons used to in early days of 1.0? I think the answer is yes. It just might feel a little less interactive, even though it's not, if that makes sense. But I could be wrong.
The other thing is, I mean, we've moved from a meta of close combat. I think in version 1, especially in the beginning, it was like, nah, nobody uses ballistic skill shooting anymore. It's all about combat. It's all about getting, let's just get stuck in and get your cavalry and your dragons into each other and basically see how that goes. And then as the meta developed, people are like, well, there's some ballistic skill shooting that's actually okay. It can get better. And I think we're moving further into that now, where you're now, people are realizing that actually shooting is a really good way of getting points without engaging, or risking engagement. And some armies are pushing that to the sort of extreme. The gyrocopter spam, I mean, Wood Elves if they were good, but basically null. Yeah, they do a similar job. Yeah, it's rough. But I mean, yeah, Wood Elves only have 2 speeds. They either have absolute dog shit or absolutely broken. That's the only they don't really oscillate between the two. So and one change to the FAQ rules can take them from one to the other.
Can kill them.
Yeah.
I think my thought on shooting versus magic shooting, which we've been through that rotation, of course, is that the tournament, let's call it that, can totally change just simply by the terrain that's on the board. Whereas magic was like, don't care if you're standing in a wood.
Don't mind.
Don't care. Like whatever. Yeah. Whereas now, and in the games we had against, Alice's Null and so forth, if you like really know how to use cover, and it's really not that hard. It's as simple as, is one of your models at all obscured, then it's -1, right? There's the argument's going to be when is it majority for -2 or not?
Yeah.
But I can see the if it does become an issue, and I'm not expecting it to be a massive issue, especially locally, but if it does, I can fully see our local scene, Tom, just deciding to put more terrain on the board.
Yeah. More sort of scattered terrain and stuff like that, for sure. A couple more forests. Yeah. We're very lucky here. And terrain should be a big thing in Warhammer, right? It always has been. And as long as we avoid the 40k-esque, I'm going to print random colors of terrain and just put them on the table.
What is that?
I'll
what
be happy.
happened when we were gone? When we were off playing X-Wing, something terrible happened.
X-Wing happened, I guess, to the gaming community.
All the
right?
good gamers actually went there. Yeah.
They just expected like print out pieces of cardboard, and it looked unreal for X-Wing. It was fantastic, but for like a proper miniatures game, no, thank you, sir.
You know what I really like, and this is sort of like an elite level of terrain, and I've seen it. I've started to see it in a few places. Is essentially, it's still obviously 3D like sculpted terrain and whatever, but it's practical. So, say for example, hills that are like a hill, but it's flat at the top. So like you can tell it's a hill, you can play it's a hill, but you can still balance your models on top of it.
That's what we have in Australia. Pretty much all the hills are made from the same an inch and a half thick, insulation foam, and it's just cut straight down on the sides, textured as a whole. And okay, the first couple of games you're like, that's an odd shaped hill, like etc. But practically it's just a straight job. It's like, am I on the hill or am I off the hill?
Yeah, it does work, and in a way, Warhammer World GW have done something similar where they've got the footprint of the terrain piece underneath it, so you can move the terrain piece off, still have the footprint there, move it in there and whatever, and then put it back on, which is a nice sort of compromise or a nice halfway point. The alternative to that is when some of the older sort of gaming venues that I go to, they have their old hills and they're literally like a big mound, and that you're like, well, it's a hill, but I can't put anything on it because it won't balance. It's impassable. But then you turn up and you go, okay, 7 pieces of terrain, 6 of them are impassable, and 1 of them is a wood. Great, I love it. Thanks.
Well, look, we're very spoiled down here at Pash, and of course, when you visit Australia, it'll be to play in one of the old Hammer events.
Of course, I'll need to do the big tour.
You'll have to do the big tour, where literally every table has like something like square based layout maps. So the expectation is 2 buildings, 2 hills, 2 forests. We introduced low linear obstacles, and the team is now talking about having added a water feature to every board.
Nice.
So 20 boards. I am lobbying Pash every episode that they're going to grow to 50 players. Maybe not this event, but in coming events and so forth.
I heard it was 60.
Yeah, I did too. It's funny. It's funny how you heard that in Scotland.
It could have been. Right. It's weird. The echoes.
That's right.
The echoes go far.
That's right. Well, to touch on what we were talking about before, I think we've spoken a lot about this around comp in 1.5, and Pash, you created a literal comp system with Aussie Comp with fellow Australian Chris. How is that going? What's your thought process? Are you looking at a version 2? Are you keeping it on the back burner for now?
So when Chris and I got together, fairly early doors in season 1, edition 1, we knew that at some point we would need to talk about comp, and we put together some ideas. And the principle of it was we wanted to be sort of as simple as possible, like not too complicated. So fewer lines of comp is better than more intricate details. That will have detrimental effects because some things get hit when they shouldn't and whatever. And the idea was basically just to sort of make it more of an engaging, friendly game. Less of a sort of less of a cutthroat experience, and basically less of a non-interactive, non-fun experience, especially for the newer players. So that's what we went in with. That was, that worked fine. The biggest hurdle that we saw is there was a lot of like, nah, you don't need comp. Like, GW made the perfect game. We absolutely love it. We definitely do not need comp, which is the issue that we had pre 1.5. Now Kathy's around. People are a lot more open to the idea of comp, and they're a lot more keen to see what happens. So to fill you in, Chris and I have been working on the next version. We've been working on essentially the next version of Aussie Comp, and it will be there will be a draft of it, or it'll certainly be a release of it by the end of September. So at the end of this month, there will be a new version. This is a news flash. To be honest, I think it's actually almost ready now. but we've been working on it for the last like month and a bit. And we have a local online event that we're running with that draft version of comp just now. And once that's done, which will be only in about 3 or 4 weeks, we'll be at a place where I think we can basically tie a knot in it and release it into the wild. So you'll see it soon.
And the first release, you guys were kind of the first ones to start to limit characters. Back pre 1.5, which I think most people were on board with. Down here in Australia, we went as far as 25% characters.
Totally fine. Yeah. And I think that could, I think some of the core sort of like, if you were to pinpoint some of the core bits that I think make the biggest difference, it's the character limitation, the flying limitation, and the like unit size limitation. That's sort of like the core principles of the Aussie comp. And I think whatever version of that you do, I think that will have a good positive effect on the game. Because let's be honest, fewer characters means more toys, more like trips, more cool stuff.
Well, I still hold the argument that demons do well when character caps are in place because of the fact that they can bring combat behemoths and level 4 casters. As a whole, I was very lucky in the 25% character cap. My Great Unclean one across 6 tournament games only died once the entire time.
Nice.
And did very well. Demons in that niche have an advantage, which is something that I'll probably have a look at again if we start to bring back. Generally, though, I think listening to a lot of global content and podcasts and other YouTube channels, I get the sense that every scene is kind of doing their own thing as a whole. That's right. And you talk about, you've got a tournament organizer group in the UK. I'm sure the Americans have something very similar. Down in Australia, we have WhatsApp groups with lots of people in it, but there's kind of like a core group of tournament organizers that contribute to that conversation. But generally, because Aussies are so opinionated, we'll absolutely, given why we have so many podcasts, let people know how that feeling was. So when 1.5 came out, there was this discussion about, do we keep the character cap in? Do we keep comp in? Do we just reset it with some soft limitations on how many things you can spam, aka the balloons and so forth, knowing that you could make those changes without killing Cathay and all those, still bring your toys, absolutely. But it limits other things, right? Like it stops me from bringing 6x2 scout gyros as a whole in my dwarf list, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I think sorry, you go, Pash.
No. I was really just like, I think in a game where movement is probably the most important part of the game. The most important element is being able to be maneuverable. Having abilities to just fly unrestricted, it needs to be handled with care, because if it's a crappy little sort of like harpy or something flying around, or a great eagle, fine. But suddenly, if you've got peg knights, bloodthirsters, and balloons flying around, and you can have as many of them as the points allow, that's going to create imbalance, or it's going to create a very unpleasant game for some people.
Yeah, so definitely. I think it harkens back to what you were talking about. Simplicity in comp is good. Comp is likely necessary at sort of at this stage of the game's life cycle, but that simplicity of comp can also lead to exponential detriment to other factions. I love the idea on paper of 25% characters to limit some of those big hitting factions, but in a lot of ways it almost makes factions like ogres, at least in 1.0, largely unplayable. 1.0 might be different because Magic's not as big a thing, so you could probably have a big sort of combat character and the Ruin War and just say whatever. But yeah, it's definitely, it almost lends itself to having to have complicated comp. And I remember, I'm not sure if you're similar, but the sort of later days of 8th edition and Swedish comp, It was one of the best
comp,
things that ever happened to the system, but also, my goodness, like it was like
super
doing
complicated.
a degree, to actually being able to absorb it. Every event you'd go to, someone would think that they'd cracked the code and then get into round 4 or 5 and, oh, damn, actually the list is illegal, but no one picked it up because there's just pages and pages and pages to go through. It's got a place, but it has to be finesse.
It is. And it's, Swedish Comp was a project that was, I think, created over like 3 or 4 years. Like it took a long time to get to, lots of data, lots of sort of like thoughts and opinions that went into it. It was great. A lot of people loved it. It was exceptionally complicated, probably the most complicated comp system that I've witnessed. But it worked to a level.
Definitely.
And I think for that, people saw the benefit of it. We are very much in the early days of let's just agree that leaving things as they are is not great. Let's move to a place where we try and limit the things that we think are an issue, maybe try and boost the things that we think need boosting. We won't always get it right, but let's start experimenting and seeing, maybe in 6-12 months time, okay, we need to, go a little bit more down that route. What I think the argument that I hear most often from the no comp crowd is, it's going to split the scene. It's going to split the community. There's going to be people playing different versions of Warhammer, people playing their own little rules and stuff like that. That's always been the case. Let's be honest. Like,
it's kind of all the time already anyway.
It's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
And this was my point, right? About each scene kind of drifting to their own thing. We see it in the data. The other comment I'd make, and this is a tiny bit divisive in its nature, is I think most of the people that talk about things like the solved meta and the game stale and so forth are actually quite a minute portion of the group. A minority, because they might play very regularly as a whole, but the average Joe, especially down here in Australia, who might play 3 to 4 events in the entire year, to them, the change to 1.5 may have been too soon in some cases.
Oh yeah. Oh, there will be people. I mean, some people might even be put off by the fact that there's a new book every 2 months. That, like, you're never going to appeal to everybody. There will be people who are unhappy with the pace of change, whether it's too fast or too slow. And it doesn't really matter, to be honest. You're totally fine to have your opinion either way, as long as you're happy to engage in the community and engage in the hobby in whatever capacity that is fun for you. There's room for everybody to do their own thing.
Well, Tom, you're a good example, right? Like, you're obsessed with ogres. But the fact is, you're a full-time student and you have other things going. You play ogres at the events, and you haven't been to every single old hammer like I have, or Alistair has. But the key thing there is, like, you got a busy life, and we all do. But you're not going to change factions at the drop of a hat, right?
Correct. Yeah, financially or sort of passion-wise either. And I speak from. I would like to say a wealth of, I guess, competitive experience in X-Wing. And I genuinely find new releases incredibly exciting, and what they do to the meta at large is fabulous. Sometimes detrimental, but largely fabulous, in my opinion. And it's great. It kind of keeps me engaged whilst I'm observing from the periphery in those lead ups to the next event. And that's why we do sort of the podcast episodes where we try and break down little elements of the new Old Hammer event, because it's fun. What are we going to take this time, because they've tweaked the players pack, and it's almost like a self-imposed comp system. I love it, but I can't speak for everyone, of course. But that analytic mind of mine loves to go ham with it. So yeah.
And I think this is probably also sort of on topic with regards to comp. I don't think there's one comp to rule them all. I don't think it's like, what, this is what we should do with limiting X, Y, and Z, or whatever. I think there is value in variety. So, there'll be people who want really, really hard, restrictive comp with lots of detail, Swedish comp sort of style, who think that's fantastic. There'll be other people who want bare minimum, like, I just want I play 1 or 2 events a year. I just want to take my army. I don't really want to spend, hours and hours making an army list. There's room for everything. And I think you want that. You want a variety of comp. You want a variety of, army sizes to be played as well, scenarios, etc. This is what makes the events interesting. And I don't really, I've not been involved in the 40K scene recently, but from the people that
my friend,
from the people that I have seen come to the old world from it, they say that basically, certainly up where we are, each event is the same as another. Like they're like copycat from one. Like there's the venue changes, but everything else stays the same. And I don't want old world to get to the. Yeah. Same players, same lists, same terrain, same maps, same objectives, same everything. Like you don't. I really don't want to see old world get to that stage. And I don't think it will. I think it's a different crowd. I don't think they will get to that stage.
I think so. And there was one point I thought about when you're talking there, which was the application of comp in different scenarios is also based on the local FAQ that you're running with, because we've noticed this whereby rules applications in the UK are not the same as down here. And some of them might be in minutia. And I struggle to think of one right now. What was that, Tom?
Yeah.
Skinwolves. The Skinwolf change.
Okay, yeah, Skinwolves, like the warp form passing on the buff. I played Skinwolves from day one from release, right? But it was immediately FAQ'd locally as no.
Yeah.
You cannot run the character Skinwolf list as a whole. And later on down the track, it didn't go that way. I think the other one...
it did get FAQ'd as well, just here, because Alex he got into the weird phase of calling himself the Skin Wolf, and he had this suit prepared. It was just furs. It was just kind of uncomfortable. But anyway, I digress.
But that wasn't for Warhammer, but whatever. Oh. Now, the other one was like single-use items. I remember this big debate happening about the horn of Isha.
Yeah.
And down here it was like no. If you fail the test, it's done.
Yeah,
you've tried,
and tried. And I think even Alex Brown from 2+, I think his words were we didn't even comprehend there was another way of interpreting that. But it wasn't until I went online and listened to some of the UK players actually break it down where I went, okay, I can understand that, but this is how we're going to play it locally. So we always try to say to people, take pause when you go online and listen to the differences. Make sure you check in with a TO if you're going to look at something. I mean, Fanatics were discussing last night about the low linear obstacle application of entrenchment from Savage.
Yeah.
Right. And there's always a mess around that. But the great thing that we have is a community which answers these questions quickly.
Yes. Yeah. And I think this is quite apparent the more you play or the more you interact with people internationally. So I play quite a lot of online events, and the amount of just completely left field interactions or rules interpretations that I've seen, it just sort of like blows your mind. Sometimes it's like, are you trying something on here? Like, are you just trying to get an advantage? But like, sometimes it's like, okay, I can see why you would read it like that. I read it like this, and locally we play it like that. And then it's all about like, okay, how are we going to resolve this? How are we going to go forward? Do we need a judge? Do we just 4-up it? Whatever. Do we just sort of resolve it? And that was one of the sort of, it's one of the reasons I did an episode earlier about just being like a sportsman-like player, basically going in there with an attitude of let's try and have a fun game together. And I want it to be rules-wise quite tight. But I recognize that GW do not and cannot make 100% rules tight games. So therefore, there is an element there where we as players have to engage and discuss and resolve situations. Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely something that's on the agenda.
Yep. And yes, great episode on that. We are firm believers in playing with intent, but also playing in a manner which befits sportsmanship as a whole. And that episode that we did, Tom, actually got a lot of attention around the place, around
Definitely.
winning the application of win at all costs and what that means now,
Yeah.
as a whole, which probably leads beautifully into our final topic, which is the Renegade Pack, which we alluded to earlier on fixing some of the factions.
Yeah.
Rather than fixing, bringing them up to speed. And we're big supporters of this. Again, classically, I played Demons. We
Yeah.
have 2 Ogre players on the pod, and Alistair plays Dark Elves.
Yeah.
I think I was
Nice.
the only person who, going into Old World, said, "Oh, I'm bailing from my legacy faction and starting a core faction."
You should have heard. You should have seen Pash, the hatred that generated in our little messenger group on Facebook.
Yeah.
But it was severe. But you're also, funnily enough, the only one with a 3D printer in the group. So yeah, that could have something to do with it.
There's a lot
but
of
basically,
leverage.
Between Renegades and between Com Systems Pash, basically you guys have a lot of weight on your shoulders, to a lot of pressure for you.
It feels like it. Yeah. So as I'm just curious to gauge this. As in terms of percentage of uptake of events in Australia, how many of them would you say use the Renegades Pack?
I would say when it launched, there was our equal share of negativity around it. It's probably 50, probably a straight 60-40, 50-50
Has to be
almost.
expected, I think, with anything that's trying to do something similar.
Yeah. In New South Wales specifically, in Sydney specifically, Western Sydney Wargamers took it up immediately. In fact, I would almost bet they were the first large event of 40-esque level players using it, but way back when it first came out. And we've just seen that Moab, which is another very historic annual event, has just picked it up. I think with 1.5, it's going to now be required going forward.
Interesting.
And well, because as a Demons player, we go from trash, although some might argue with the lessening of magic, there might be less magic attacks around. Maybe we're there, but to playable as a whole, Tom, with Ogres.
I think more so than Renegades. Excuse me. I think more so than Renegades, probably the mission pack that Games Workshop brought out probably
that was
impacted
big.
Ogres the most in terms of a positive way, just because they finally gave you, Noblars in core actually doing stuff, really cheap.
Purpose.
Yeah, exactly, which was fantastic. But I think Ogres, I think the Renegades probably doesn't do enough for Ogres. And I'm not talking about like a huge sweep. I've sort of talked at length about like subtle tweaks, something just a little bit of a buff to Iron Fists or something similar, giving them an AP on their attacks or something similar. We're so close, and you have to be very careful with anything to not give them the ABC, D, and D.
Everything.
Exactly. So, with Dark Elves, with any of these Renegade factions, a slight buff can take them over the line very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And look, we haven't really had any Ogres events here, I guess, here in New South Wales, at least that I've been privy to. And we've seen in the slide that you put up earlier, Alex, with 1.5, they're kind of already in the middle pack now, whereas before they were, down toward the Skaven level. In terms of performance, other than Jack from the UK, who was a fantastic player and sort of galvanized that Ogre Gutstar sort of play style. But I'm a huge backer of Renegades, and I would posit that probably most, if not all, big events here in New South Wales at least are taking them. What about you, Pash? Are you?
So it's interesting because
strap yourselves in.
I'll try and be balanced on this. There isn't a huge uptake for Renegades in the UK. I would say maybe 20% of events use it. Maybe none of the big events have used it. Now, this is, obviously the likes of the TSN Arena will use it at every event, and they run a lot of events. So that's one thing. And I have heard of a few other places that run it. but there's not been a massive uptake for it. And I think some of the hesitation is basically most people will recognize that like the legacy factions are falling behind, and there are some factions that are sort of incomplete. There's some bits and pieces that don't quite work, and it's a bit of a pain in the arse, right? However, the ultimate solution would ideally be GW releases them as a proper faction. That's everybody's wish, obviously. So, but on the other end of it, how far do you go into it just becoming a bit of a homebrew type rule set? And is it going through I think if it was like the Swedish comp where you had confidence that these guys have spent hours and hours looking at it, they've done some data, they probably know more about the game than we do as players and consumers. So like if you had that level of confidence that Renegades has had the same treatment, you'd be more willing to give it a try. At the moment, it sort of feels like a bit of a wish list of things thrown together to see how it goes, and that's fine. But I think people aren't particularly keen to give that a bunch of homebrew rules a go as much. Am I being fair? I'm trying to be fair.
Yeah, you are being fair. That was the main driving commentary that the local Aussies had that were against it, and I think I totally get what you're saying, right, about it, and it comes back to this point about locally check in with the scene, right? Because even I'm talking, Pash, like in Sydney, I would say there's an uptake of Renegades, and almost. If you went for a local game now, especially with someone within the Western Sydney Wargamers group, where there's probably around circa 60 players or so now, like regularly fighting for one of the 40 spots, Renegades would be in play. Even in local social games on Warhol and so forth, there's a lot of legacy faction players in that regards. Maybe again because it's the cost prohibitive nature, people have still got the old armies. In the shed they want to bring out. But if you go down to Melbourne, which is one of our other capital cities, it's probably less, right? Because people down there kind of said, no, actually, no, we don't really want to do that. It's the homebrew commentary again, and so forth. I think where we've got to here locally is that once it becomes indoctrinated into the psyche, it's done. Like I couldn't even imagine Pash going back to non-renegades now, and we'll come back to this argument about perhaps divisiveness and splitting the community. I would go as far as saying my personal opinion is I would not go to an event locally unless it had renegades.
And I think that is the level that it's getting to is that I have heard that opinion from other people who play exclusively Renegades armies or a Renegade army or a Legacy army, and they will say, I'm not interested in events that don't have it. And I totally get that because, like, why would you go to something that has less rules for your army? Like, why would you choose to play a less fun version of the army?
Unless you play vampires.
Well, exactly. Yeah, well, that's a separate issue altogether. I mean, I don't feel like vampires are, they are a legacy army, but they're the only one. They're an exception, let's be honest. But I totally get that view. I think the view from the other end is, well, there's 30 odd factions now, of which 6 of them are legacy. Pick one of the ones that has got an updated set of rules. Maybe give that a try. I don't know. That's.
I mean, I am fortunate. I do have like a Chaos army and a Dwarf army. I have 2 core factions and one Renegade.
You've got options. Yeah,
I do. And as of here, I am sitting here saying that I'm switching to Dwarves for the next one. As a whole, I think this is also touching on the point of my gut feel is now that we have so many sub factions joining the game. We're probably not going to see Renegades coming back, and I cop a lot of heat for this, opinion as a whole.
I'd back you on that. I think we're more likely to see new armies than we are to see these back. Now, that's not to say they'll never release them, because never say never. GW do whatever they want, and they will chase money. But I think, in order of priority, they would rather release a new army like Kislev or or Dogs of War or anything like that, rather than being like, well, you know what, let's release demons. I don't think that's or even what they might do is they might go, well, you know, let's release Vampire Coast. That's vampires, right? Let's do that. Like, I very much think that anything you've seen in Total War has more chance of being in the game now or soon than the legacy stuff that they've chosen not to back. And it is a sad fact, because like some of these armies are, you know, phenomenally flavorful. It's just not in their plan.
One day.
It's not in their plan.
One day. Well, to finish off the night, Pash, maybe we can ask you the question: the balance to undead. If vampire counts are right up there, and if I'm going to make a prediction for Old Hammer Tom, I'm going to predict some of the vampire factions are at least on the top table. It's probably going to be the final showdown. If vampire counts is not an official army, do we fix them or via comp or via things like the Renegade Pack?
I think comp is probably now and part of me is because I don't like changing rules. Even though I agree that changing rules is the more direct answer to some of these problems. As soon as you decide I'm changing rules, that's when you start having your own versions of Warhammer. So that's why I'm more in the, well, let's limit the problem rather than change it. But then that person goes, oh, I'm going to this event, but at this event I can play vampires with double regen, or I go to this event and suddenly that isn't a thing. Like all of these variations will, I think, be detrimental. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people just like flavor and they like different choices. But I think comp is the answer. That's the answer we're looking for. Maybe.
Would you perhaps the solution is not to have Graveguarding core? Maybe that's just a community assumption.
I mean, there's a whole there's a whole discussion about maybe not having special and rare units in core is probably more of a positive, but hey ho, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, to top that off, I mean, look, we're going to have 40 players at this event coming up. There's probably going to be 2 vampire players, maybe 3. There's probably going to be 2 Cathay players. The great thing about Australia is that we do have a very diverse, sometimes stubborn set of players, aka people that will live and die on their faction. Not like me, who rotates between the few and never brings the same list.
If you want to print me a Cathay army, I'm not going to say no.
That's your long game. That is totally your long game.
Exactly.
Yeah. And to get Pash to ship you some cheap,
some 10% markup only.
Yes, I'll deflate them and I'll hide them inside teddy bears and just ship them your way.
That'd be fantastic.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, Pash, thanks for joining us, mate. I mean, you know, we've been going now for an hour and 13 as a whole. We find it very interesting the different minutiae differences in the global scene. I think Warhammer as a whole has never been better than it is now. As you say, quarterly releases, sometimes faster, access to models, whether it be GW, third-party sculpts. I don't just mean 3D printing. Like, there are other miniatures out there as a whole. The acceptance of the community of 3D printing is probably the strongest in fantasy. Especially locally. I don't know about the UK, but I would assume as much because Tom Carley's pretty much printing half of the UK's
He's a busy
supply on that side. But, you know, that's the reason why we started this channel as a whole, was very much just to focus on the local scene, which I continue to say we have one of the best, if not the best scene globally in New South Wales, with repeat players playing with intent.
Good people.
Good people that you'd go and have a beer with afterwards as a whole.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I think this is the golden age of Warhammer. Like, we are in the best place that we've ever been in terms of the game is supported. It's got lots of releases. The company's supporting it. The scene is growing. It's a very exciting time to play Warhammer. It's very much, I think, I'm very much enjoying being just part of this community. And the people that I see at events, like you say, they're not just good players and opponents, they're just really nice guys. You'll happily go out for a drink and a meal with them, and you'll have a great time. So yeah, definitely the best Warhammer's ever been, and I look forward to seeing what the next year, 2, 3, 10 brings. Here's open.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Pash. Tom, we got a lot of planning to do for September. So for now, guys, we will wish you a good night.
All the best.
Thanks so much,
Cheers.
Pash.